Please give a warm welcome to Stan Schwartz, Vice President Emeritus of Rosco.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, David, for spilling water on the speech, so I'll deliver it extempore. You know, the opening slide says nothing happens. It's a misnomer, because something is going to happen in the next 20 minutes on both sides of this podium. On your side, I hope you'll be listening. It's early in the morning. And maybe you'll learn a few things you didn't know about selling and marketing. But on my side of the microphone, I have to tell you, I've waited 20 years to make this speech, and I am so excited and thrilled to be among you today. Let me explain about the 20 years. Nearly 50 years ago, the famous publisher and salesman, Red Motley, said, "Nothing happens until somebody sells something." It was true then, and it's still mostly true today. But more important than its accuracy is the reason Red Motley, felt it necessary to offer that statement and why it quickly became a catchphrase in American marketing. This was in the 50s. Now, looking around the room, I can see there aren't too many people who remember the 50s. Some of you weren't even born in the 50s. But here in the US, we were undergoing a post-war boom. Commerce and industry were thriving, and there were traveling salespeople everywhere. But most Americans thought of salesmen as kind of Willy Loman in the Arthur Miller play, Death of a Salesman. Slightly disreputable, say anything to make a sale, sort of a necessary evil in business. Parents everywhere wanted their children to grow up, their college-educated children to be doctors and lawyers, accountants, bankers, veterinarians, anything but salesmen. So Motley felt it necessary to remind people of how important salespeople were to our economy and our society. And it was true then, and it is today, that nothing happens in business until somebody sells something. But that something nowadays may not be a product. It may well be an idea. Consider the most obvious example of our times, the growth of technology, associated mostly with, I guess, Silicon Valley, but just as important here in the Midwest and in the Northeast. It's tempting to change Motley's aphorism into nothing happens until somebody creates an algorithm. Or perhaps, nothing happens until somebody invents an app. But the inventor of the app still has to sell his or her idea to somebody or somebodies to get it funded for future growth or sold to another company. The engineer who creates an algorithm or an LED light has an important achievement, but that algorithm isn't going to drive a program, and that LED light isn't going to light up a building or a stage until somebody sells it. What has changed since Motley's time is the nature of selling, including and specifically our kind of selling in theatrical and architectural lighting. So some 20 years after Motley's ringing defense of the need for salespeople, Peter Drucker, the most eminent management guru of his time, said this: "The purpose of business is to create a customer. The business enterprise," he said, "has two, and only two functions, basic functions: marketing and innovation." Marketing and innovation. What about manufacturing skills? What about human relations? What about concern about the environment? What about all that other stuff that goes into business? All important, said Drucker, but it's the marketing, he said, that is the distinguishing, unique function of the business. Under marketing, of course, he included not just sales, but advertising, returns policy, and all the other stuff that goes with marketing. So in a few short years, we've learned that sales and marketing have escalated from what many business people thought a necessary evil to the very key function of a business. And that's why coming here today to offer some ideas on selling and marketing is so important to me. I started my career in the advertising agency business. I worked first as an intern and then later as a copywriter for two of the greatest advertising agencies in the country. And I learned some good lessons that have stood me in very good stead, lessons about creativity to this day. By the way, those were the those were the years of Mad Men on television. I don't remember quite as much sex as there was in that program. But the truth is, I was certainly, at the beginning, not a very good advertising writer. The agencies, these great agencies, kept me in their employ, not so much for the headlines and the copy that I wrote, but for the passion and the vigor with which I used to sell my admittedly mediocre work to the agency's management and then to the clients. By the time I came to work in the lighting industry as a vice president at Rosco, my copywriting skills had improved somewhat, but I was already in love with selling and the whole marketing function that revolves around it. So I've spent the last 20 or 30 years hanging out with guys and girls like you and your customers, lighting designers, technical directors, architects who specialize in lighting spaces and environments. Standing here today, I feel like I've come home. And like the prodigal son, I am very keen to share with you some of what I've learned during these past years. We'll get to help. David managed to wet the paper, so I can't turn it so easily. That's, I guess he was trying to shorten the speech somewhat. Didn't work. We'll get to how marketing in the lighting industry has changed. The marketing part of it has changed. But first, let's talk about selling. The face-to-face part of the marketing function you guys do every day. Let's see how that has changed. It used to be that your job as reps and dealers was to convince the customer that the product you were selling, based on its features and benefits, was the right thing for him or her and available at the right price right now. In a way, that's still true, except the words convincing the customer are politically incorrect nowadays. And features and benefits, product features and benefits, just aren't enough anymore. Every manufacturer you guys represent, if it has a mission statement or a value statement or a cultural statement or even an advertising slogan, has the words customer service or customer focus or listening to the customer or understanding the customer's needs or something like that in its mission, value, or cultural statement. I don't mean to demean these statements, and I am sure that the management of those companies, including Rosco and I'm sure ETC, takes these statements seriously and tries to live by them. But it's clear that convincing the customer, remember that, convincing the customer with sales arguments isn't part of their marketing or cultural or value statement. The difficulty is in terms of the marketing relationship to the customer. Everybody's saying the same thing. So how do you make your selling program what Peter Drucker calls the unique distinguishing function of your business? Well, unique. Well, one way is to attune yourself to your customer or prospective customer so that you can listen and hear what he or she isn't telling you. This process of getting to know and understand your customer takes some skill and talent or just plain hard work. Some years ago, many years ago, I met with the technical director and the teacher of lighting design at a very large university, actually a university right here in the Midwest, not in Madison. It was in the early years of using modern fog machines. Some of you perhaps are old enough to remember that Rosco developed the first fog machines that replaced dry ice, which were then in use. These clients expressed reservations about how the fog machine we were offering would affect the lighting and set design of the play they planned to produce, and whether it would have any effect on the student actors. Now, this was, of course, well before the Actors' Equity got into the issue and issued a list of safety rules for fog machines and equity productions. Now, on that sales call, I actually had with me the results of a study Rosco had done to test the safety of artificial fog. And that study showed that with some sensible precautions, it had no effect on customers or on performers or musicians in the pit or even audience members. I also had a list of the ingredients of the fog fluid, none of which was dangerous in liquid or vaporous form. But instead of showing them that paperwork, I pulled out some photos of a production at the Metropolitan Opera House in New York. Today I would have used video, but it was so long ago, portable video wasn't available. The photos showed the most famous singers of the time singing their hearts out on a smoke-filled stage. My only comment to the customer was the price the Metropolitan Opera House paid to those singers and the name of the equally famous lighting designer who designed it. But I want you to understand what was going on here. I didn't use the photos and the credits of these famous names as an endorsement of the product. I sensed that both the designer and the tech director had to answer to a department head or a dean or someone else who had raised the question of safety. It wasn't so much giving them a technically acceptable answer, such as the study results we had done. I needed to provide a narrative that they could pass along to their bosses, clients, or colleagues. So the most prestigious opera house in the country, employing stars who received several thousands of dollars, were confident that the fog enhanced the design and had no more deleterious effect than, say, the filters or the gobos or the polystyrene sets. Here they were on a stage, their mouths open, singing their hearts out with fog right in front of them, visible. So here are the lessons from that story, and dozens more I can tell you, and probably many you can tell me. First, listen to your customer's questions, of course, but hear his feelings as well. In this case, as in many others you encounter every day, the tech director said he was concerned about the effects of fog. He probably could have researched it just as easily on his own. He needed not only to relieve his concerns, but to demonstrate for himself and others the evidence, and to demonstrate for himself and others that his evidence convincing not only to his head, but to his heart and to his gut. The photos of the Met singers, the opera singers, singing their heart, their million-dollar throats out, was far more compelling for his gut than was study results. Second lesson was this: every customer and prospect you see has a boss, and your customer may have to provide a narrative for that boss or client, a narrative that your customer can deliver on his own without you being in the room. So may I respectfully urge you, my friends and colleagues, don't just sell the product, sell the result. And sell it in a way that your customers can easily and confidently sell it to his boss. Another example. If you're selling an LED fixture or a lighting system, I don't think the data sheet, I mean, the guys at ETC will kill me for this. I don't think the data sheets or the lumen output or the CRA is your best-selling tool, although all of those are important. I think a photo or a video of a stage or a building or an environment lit with those LED lights is far more compelling. This is particularly true if you can supplement those photos or videos with a narrative, such as, the architect told me that since these LED lights were installed in the storefront, traffic increased 17%. Or the lighting designer told us he's done this show 4 times with tungsten fixtures and filters, but his color never looked as good as it did on this production. The first story about the architect saying traffic increased 17% is true. It happened to me. The second story about the lighting designer who commented that he improved his color is not true, and you should never repeat it anywhere. Especially where it'll get back to Rosco. But that's real customer service and customer focus. Hearing what the customer is telling you and listening to uncover what he didn't tell you, and finding and providing satisfying answers for his needs. And always remember, those needs may well include a narrative he can show or tell his employers or his clients or his colleagues or all of the above. All of you sitting here today are good salespeople. I suspect most of you are great salespeople. Here's the difference. Good salespeople get orders. Great salespeople create and maintain and retain customers. Good salespeople work with customers, not to convince them, as they did in the old days, but to match their products to their customers' needs. Great salespeople know their customers well enough to understand that they don't always articulate their real needs, and you may have to take them to the top of the mountain with your product to get those needs verbalized. By top of the mountain, I mean show your customers how your product was used by a big-time band in a music tour, even if he or she wants lighting for a 500-seat college theater. Because your college customers' verbalized need was for an economical system that could light Shakespeare and Ibsen. But his real desire, if you can sense it, was to make and teach lighting design that was arresting and magical and enhance the production in ways that had never been seen before on that campus. And maybe to provide his students with the kind of lighting instruments and systems they would be using after graduation. Good salespeople know the products they sell, which is what the rest of this workshop experience is all about for you guys. But great salespeople also learn about the products they sell, but translate that information to what they know of their customers' needs and desires and feelings. There is at least one other sort of mundane difference between good salespeople and great ones. We've all had the experience of working on a project and being assured it was in the bag, it was a sale, we had earned it. And then often at the last minute, it was snatched away from us by a consultant or a brother-in-law or a contractor or a manager or someone we didn't even know existed. So even great salespeople can't eliminate that occupational hazard. But they do minimize it by searching out the specifier, the guy who can not only say yes, but yes, write the order. And if a great salespeople doesn't have access to that yes, write the order guy, he will make sure that the narrative he supplied to his customer and everyone else on the project gets to the yes, write the order guy. So, what I've learned from great salespeople I've met in my career is that they do the hard work of getting to know their customers' needs, desires, and feelings. They find a way to integrate product information to their customers' needs, often taking him or her to the top of the mountain. Great salespeople create a narrative that their customers can take to their bosses or clients. And great salespeople make sure that the narrative gets to the guy who can say, yes, write the order. Now, I should have started this speech with a review of where selling fits into the modern marketing programs in the lighting industry. Then David told me I was on at 8:30 in the morning, and I felt that was a bit early for that kind of tutorial. But for those of you who are now or plan to be concerned with your company's overall marketing program, this kind of quick review that I'm going to offer now may be important. Marketing a product or a service in our industry, particularly with a product or a new product or a product line extension, almost always goes through 4 distinct stages. The first of these is called awareness. By this, we mean you have to make the prospective customer aware that this product or product line extension exists. This is often done, almost always, through trade magazine advertising, where manufacturers use usually full-page ads to show a picture of the new product with its features and benefits and a catchy headline. Nowadays, manufacturers often use digital advertising, sending to their databases or outside websites the same kind of basic new product information. We've all seen those ads in Lighting and Sound America or Architectural Lighting or in digital form in your own email inbox. Now, here's 2 dirty little secrets about advertising, print or electronic. The first is that a tiny percentage of the magazine, any magazine, the tiny percentage of the readers of the magazine, any magazine, will even get to see that full-page ad, much less remember it. And that is true for electronic direct mail as well. Most sophisticated advertisers will tell you they would be thrilled if, say, 5% of the database even opens the email or stops at the magazine page. The second and not so dirty and not so secret information is this. Even among the small number who see the ad or the electronic direct mail piece, nobody, and I mean nobody, is going to buy the product just because they saw the ad. There will now be a pause of 30 seconds while you remember the 3 people who bought a product from you because they saw an ad in a magazine. Okay, you got that? So nobody is not quite nobody, but it really is nobody. The ad, no matter how brilliantly written, and I've done a few of them myself, is intended only to make people aware that such a product exists and what its qualities are. The promised land, the holy grail for most manufacturers in this industry, is that those ads, print or digital, will take some readers to the next stage of marketing success, and that is interest. Here's the difference between the 2 stages, and you'll forgive me for using the product in this example. A customer sees an ad for a Source 4 Mini in a magazine. That's awareness. But in the second stage, he or she says, hey, I can use a small fixture like that in the museum project that's coming up. That's interest. And the dirty little secret about that is it almost never happens by itself. I'm not talking for ETC, which leads its field in so many areas and probably in this as well. But most manufacturers, of course, hope that their ads or other marketing programs can get customers to the stage of interest, certainly on system products. But they count on their reps and their dealers to even get them there. And certainly, you guys can get the customers to the next stage from awareness to interest to desire. So awareness. Oh, ETC has a small Source 4. To interest. Hey, maybe I can use that on the museum project that's coming up. To desire. Wow, that new small Source 4 would work very well to illuminate the objects in the museum. In most cases, getting past the awareness stage to desire and finally conviction is where you deal with pricing and competition and other issues, requires you. The salesmanship that integrates your knowledge of your customers' needs and desires and your skill at matching products to those needs. Advertising can't do that. Electronic direct mail can't do that. Algorithms can't do that. Social media can't do that. But you can and do every day. And I, for one, was thrilled with the opportunity to come here today to salute you and for making Red Motley's formula still true. Nothing happens until somebody sells something. Thank you.